From time immemorial, Africans have always communed amongst themselves. In recent times, experts have argued that impactful cross-border trade in Africa could lead to economic growth as well as development. With the rise in food crisis on the African continent, the International Monetary Fund estimates that 15% of food imports from Africa are from neighboring countries. Pursuing continental self-sufficiency in the long run may be an appropriate remedy for Africa's weak position in, of course, agricultural supply chains. In order to remedy these, experts say the limitations to cross-border trade, African countries have been advised to improve their transnational transport infrastructure and be united. Today on Voice It, we shall be looking at the opportunities and challenges facing cross-border trade in Africa. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you immensely for joining us on a fresh dose of Voice It over your Pan-African channel For You Media. Today we are discussing cross-border trade in Africa, of course looking at the opportunities as well as the challenges that cross-border trade in Africa are facing, especially with the various tensions that are affecting different African nations at the time. Of course, African cross-border trade is something that is affecting not just countries in the east part of the continent, but of course other African countries. And to discuss today's topic of discussion, I am not alone. In the studio with me is Dr. NGWANYAM. He is an entrepreneur as well as a political analyst. Good day, sir.
Thank you. Very exciting topic.
It's a pleasure to have you once more.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I would like to kick off without any transition to ask you first, what is your opinion about the situation when it comes to looking at cross-border trade in Africa? How do you evaluate all this?
I would say it's a failure. It's a great thing to do. It's an opportunity. But in Africa, that trade is a failure on many fronts. Okay, that's my reading of it. And if we could have more of it, it would be great. But it's not good enough. That's not good enough. And there are reasons why we are in that situation. And therefore, if we can seek to correct all those things that are stopping us from trading freely with one another, Africa will move forward. So we'll be looking at those impediments and trying to understand them. And if we don't do that, we really would be in a mess.
Yeah, indeed, if we don't take the right measures, we don't put in place the right measures, definitely we are headed towards a doom. So what gains would cross-border trade bring amongst African nations when we're talking about economic growth and development on the continent?
Thank you. You're mentioning two concepts there. You're talking about economics and then trade. All right, we're talking about economics and trade, and to understand that we are saying that there is something that somebody is selling to someone. So we are talking about goods and services. We are talking about goods and services. We are talking about wealth creation. We are talking about industry. We are talking about a lot of things. And to actually see where we stand, let us rephrase our question. What is it that one African country is selling to the other? That is where the problem lies. There are a lot of problems, but there are some key issues that we must deal with. You know, there are a lot of excuses and a lot of problems, but they're not weighted equally. All right? We are saying trade and economics. And when you're talking trade and economics, there must be something that you have in hand that you want to sell to your neighbor. And what I'm telling you is that we've got nothing to sell. That is where the problem is. You know, just recently, is it just a year or so ago, there was this free trade something African that was signed. I've forgotten how it's called. Something.
Yeah, the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Voilà, c'est ça. And I was saying that it's a great thing on paper.
Yes, but the measures are not being put in place on the ground.
No, the measures are not being put in place on the ground. But the most important thing again is you and I have got nothing to sell to each other. All right, let's look at
what about African nations are mostly exporting what they have, their natural resources, their goods, their agricultural products. Why don't they share this with the African counterparts?
Good. Now, when we begin to look deeply into that now, then we will understand the concept of entrepreneurship, industry, and transformation. That's where the problem lies. You get what I'm saying? Take for instance, let's take two countries. what has Cameroon got to sell to Central Africa?
That's a big question.
What has Cameroon got to sell to Nigeria? What has Nigeria got to sell to Cameroon? That is, I mean, let's be concrete.
So we need to answer those questions
yes.
first before we
yes.
dive into
yes. Oh, you sold. You had so much, you made so many dollars selling. Fine. What has Cameroon got to sell to Nigeria? Okay. Oh, the roads are not good. Understandable. Oh, there's tension. Fine. Great, that's understandable. But the key question that carries 70 or 80% of the weight is, what have you got to sell? Until we answer that question, we are only beating around the bush. And if you go and look at the statistics, because Cameroon does business with Nigeria,
yes.
all right, and find out what are the articles that are coming from Nigeria to Cameroon.
They are Chinese goods. Opened the road.
They are Chinese goods.
That is the thing, we are selling foreign stuff.
Yes, that is the problem. You're producing nothing. So if you go and look at the charts, oh, Cameroon made so much money and custom duties from things that were brought in from Nigeria and so on. Fair and good enough. What are the articles that were sold in your country? Where did they come from? Were they made in Nigeria? The answer is no. Now, what is Cameroon selling to Nigeria? I think I've seen some. You know this vegetable called eru?
Yes.
Yes. We go into the forest and then look for these leaves that nature just put there. We cut them, we back them up, put in a boat, and take to Nigeria and sell them. That's all. Tell me the second thing that you know that is sold to Nigeria. And then when Chinese rice come, you know. The good thing is the government of Nigeria stopped the importation of rice and they put the foot down. Otherwise, what they were trying to grow their rice industry to be able to produce rice in Nigeria.
Even Cameroon to produces rice, but we don't really sell it out.
No, we don't even have enough to eat. So what do you have to sell? But the thing is this. Cameroon, we were a heavy importer of the rice, and so the rice will come in, and our businessmen will take the rice, put it in boats, and hide it, and take it across to Nigeria to sell it and make more money. And the rice was coming from Thailand, China, and so on. So that's but we didn't sell any rice that was grown in Cameroon because we don't have enough ourselves. We depend on imports. So what we've been doing is we've been taking goods that are manufactured everywhere across our borders, and we're calling it trade. That's bullshit.
But how about if African leaders could actually boost the agricultural sector so that they can be able to have what they are going to sell, because we cannot give out what we don't have.
Correct.
If we can boost that sector, how would they do that?
That is the point. So what is the guiding principle? First and foremost, let us step back a little bit. Go and look at a country like China. China is doing very well.
Yes.
And about 30% of their GDP comes from agriculture. All right. All these rice that all Africans are eating.
The backbone of every society comes from
agriculture.
From the soil, yes.
It comes from the soil. America is the #1 economic power in the world, but their strength, in spite of the fact that they go to the moon and they have all this technology, their real strength is in agriculture. You damage the agriculture, you bring America to its knees. And then the other day, you know, just after the presidential elections in France, one of the opposition leaders was trying to talk about how agriculture has been messed up in France, and Macron ought to do something to bring up that agriculture, otherwise France will suffer. So you see, agriculture is the thing. And you notice also that with the war between Ukraine and Russia, you see how African presidents were running to go and beg for food. And then you see, and the president of Russia, he kind of like toned down a little bit, say, okay, let us ship some of this stuff to Africans, some Ukrainian wheat or something. But you probably read on social media that so many, probably more than 100 ships, or how many went,
they sent
or
it to
200.
the whole of Africa.
Yes, they were sending lots of ships of stuff meant, you know, labeled Africa, but somewhere along the line all those ships disappeared and went to other parts of the world. It tells you how important agriculture is. It tells you how important food is. And therefore, what are we saying here? First and foremost, if Africa must improve on this trade, where do we begin? Let us start by growing what we eat. It's very important. And then as we try to grow what we eat, we'll realize that there are some areas due to their climate and weather conditions and so on, they probably cannot grow enough of what they eat. Then those areas that are okay can grow those foods and sell them to their African brothers and sisters who cannot, because they have some natural things that stop them from growing it. That's where we have to begin. And when we are talking about the agriculture, it's not this primitive thing of a hoe and a woman bending over. It must be industrialized agriculture, you know, loaded with a lot of technology.
Like some time ago, the African Development Bank, the head of the African Development Bank, Dr. Adesina, he said if Africa wants to grow, they have to invest in the agricultural sector.
Yeah, it's not politics, it's not theory, it's not rocket science. It's just a plain truth sitting in plain sight. But we are too dumb drinking and failing to see what is right, and we keep spinning around in circles doing the wrong thing. You know, I read somewhere that sometimes you know, we have these some problems that seem to be so big, but in reality the answers are right there. They're simple solutions, and we are just failing to understand, thinking that we have to call for some white man to come and decipher it for us. It's just as plain like that. And if we are too dumb to understand, it's our problem.
There's this saying that the youthful population, they are the future of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now we're talking of boosting the agricultural sector, because that's the only way Africa can actually stand on its feet.
Yes.
Now, how most of those that comprise the young generation don't really want to get into agriculture, which is something that's very important for every society.
Yes.
How do we get them to follow the line?
Thank you very much for asking that question. And I have been meditating on that question for a very long time, in as much as I advocate a lot for agriculture, and we have a school of agriculture. In as much as I advocate,
doing well even with the cultivation of wheat and so on.
In as much as I advocate for agriculture, I don't advocate for that kind of agriculture that our parents and our grandparents did. That's not agriculture. That is beating yourself to death. You understand what I'm saying? It's about technology is there for us to use. What is technology? Technology is this set of principles and science and machines and so on that you put together to give you leverage, to give you a multiplier effect in whatever you want to do. That's what technology is all about. And the biggest problem in Africa is that we do not use technology to our advantage. We use our muscle. You see, when you are talking about a farmer in America, I guess you have seen the pictures. I guess you have seen their farms and so on. You see, it's just one or two people with farms, and they can feed technology. Yes, they can feed, you know, thousands and thousands and millions of people. Just a few people working with a lot of machines, growing a lot of animals and plants and so on. They are using technology. But here, whole families have to go, you know, with a hoe in hand and a cutlass in hand, and they spend all their lives scratching at the earth.
We are not seeing.
The earth is not productive. They don't know how to put manure into it. They don't know how to use technology. And then the crops of corn come out as short as me, producing nothing. And no, that's not technology. So when you are saying that the youths in Africa are not interested in agriculture, you know, it is not true, in quotes. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Is that we have not sold agriculture to them in a palatable manner.
They're more attracted to what is nice and
they have a wrong impression of the agriculture that they see. Present them the right kind of agriculture, teach them the technology, and teach them how they can make ends meet from the agriculture, and they will survive. You know, and I became particularly interested in this. You know, about 6 years ago or more, there was something that happened during our I don't know whether it was the Women's Day, I don't know whether it was the 20th May celebration or one of those days on the 20th May Avenue in Yaoundé, where we do our national celebrations. The First Lady, Madame Chantal Biya, was there, and I'm sure if I mention it, you will remember. There was a long line of women who are driving tractors, caterpillars, trucks, and so on. I think it must have been a Women's Day. And they were so happy. And the thing just came into my mind, wow, look at that. So women can drive, you know, they were driving graders, they were driving front-end loaders, and they were driving excavators, and 20-ton trucks, 30-ton trucks, and so on, all these trucks. Which means that if we could actually teach our women, you know, beautiful girls like you, with nice nails, but you go into this caterpillar and drive it. It's not force. It's just about using your head and then just pushing buttons and driving this machine, and it does the odd jobs for you. It's just as simple as that. So we have a problem there. We have a problem there, and we ought to correct that. I mean, we can tap into that in the sense that we can change the way we do things, and sell a better image to our youth and help them to use technology to make things happen. That's all. Just use technology to make things happen, which means that you could actually be a presenter like you are on television now. After this, you go and enter your jumpsuit, still put on your lipstick and with your nails, and just enter into that caterpillar and drive it and do your farm work and your planting and everything. And you will still be good. After that, you just dust yourself and you'll be okay. That is the kind of agriculture we need to do. Agriculture with some brains, agriculture using some machines, and so on, and it will be okay, and we'll be able to produce just so much. So and then after that, we transform it and we sell to others. That's it.
It's about reducing now the energy we put in, but getting a valuable output.
Yes, the energy, we need to qualify it. We need to put in a lot of mental energy, but not muscle. Are you getting?
Like was the case in the past.
Yes. Now we are using but muscle, and then we are fighting with grass and mosquitoes and snakes and so on. No, that's not the way you do it. You use but more of brain power, and then you use machine power. You use the power of technology. That's it, and we change the story. Yeah,
definitely. We have seen a case in Tanzania where they're encouraging women to take part in agriculture, encouraging women to take part in continental trade and so on.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that even ladies of the 21st century can actually take part without any stress.
No stress.
So how do we encourage? Because there's still this idea of the past when it comes to agriculture.
Yeah.
If we're talking of boosting trade in Africa, how can we make the women, or bring in to close the gender gap, so to say?
Yeah, it's about when you put women, put youth along with them.
Yes.
It's about making youth and women, be part of the growth process. So, and where we went wrong, especially, we have said it before, is our school system. Our school system has not been good at all. The white man deceived us to be telling a lot of stories day in, day out. So you will see children who have studied and have a master's in literature but cannot write a novel. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yes.
They will study, have a master's degree in literature, but cannot write an article.
They'll tell you they just want to pass.
Yes, they cannot write an article and put in a newspaper. They cannot write a novel like
Shakespeare,
like this Shakespeare or these Nigerian writers, also Achino Achebes and so on. They cannot. Because they have not been given the right tools. You see, they just go in there to pass and have certificates. So we have a lot of universities with a lot of people with certificates who are not productive. And we need to change that. The quality of our education has not been good. And they would argue with you, call you names and so on, but they cannot produce a toothpick. They cannot produce a cup of corn. They cannot write a novel. They cannot write an essay that can fetch. They cannot do anything that would change their story. That is the problem, and the bottom line is we've had a failed education. And I was just going to tell you that agriculture, as it is, if we bring it out of the cocoon where it is now and polish it up, it can. Let's take a country like Cameroon. In fact, we can use agriculture, and when we are talking about agriculture, it's not limited to plants. Okay, we are using agriculture to take plants and animals together, along with food transformation, and then marketing. So that's what we are calling agriculture.
Yes.
Okay,
everything just in the B2B development and economic.
If we do that in Cameroon through agriculture, we can create 2 million jobs. Watch my lips. I mean 2 million jobs for youth every 2 years. And you notice that in Cameroon we are spending our 350 billion importing food and drinks and fish from other nations.
Could invest.
Yes. So if we could get our children to produce the things that we eat and drink, they will be able to earn the 350 billion francs that we are throwing abroad to other people. Are you seeing how we can change it? So the money is there to pay the youth. You just need to change the strategy and get your children to produce what you eat and drink. And get the market, because now when you go to the have you visited our supermarkets? Most of the supermarkets are owned by foreigners.
Yes.
And then 95% of the goods that are sold in those supermarkets are imported. We need to change that story. As long as we continue like this, we are going nowhere. So you see, that is where the problem
We should
is.
start selling home-based things.
Home-based things.
Promote ourselves from home.
Yeah.
Charity begins at home.
Yes. Go to our supermarkets and find out on the shelves, be it in Cameroon or Nigeria, go and find out the things that have been produced in other African countries. You will see nothing. All right, it's as bad as that. All the things come from Europe and America, and China.
We have had a lot of we have a lot of economic blocks in Africa, and of course, at their levels, they're trying to boost economic developments in various African countries within the regions.
Yeah.
Now we have seen the case of the East African community, where the Democratic Republic of Congo just got there. In as much as the country is faced with its own challenges, they were anticipating that the country has some kind of potential when it comes to trading and in the region. Now, what is the real role of these economic blocks when it comes to boosting cross-border trade and possibly leading it to economic growth and development? What is supposed to be their role? The
point is, working in those groups is very good. It's something is commendable. All right, it's commendable, because as of now we have a lot of, they call it in French, tracasserie. You know, a lot of trouble, border crossings and so on. Goods want to move from this country to this other country, passing through. There are a lot of headaches and so on. That's what they are looking at. How do you break those barriers, custom barriers and so on? So things
even bad roads,
on the bad roads and all those things. All right, but it still doesn't answer the question, because even though we are talking about those economic things, we are still talking about selling of raw materials. We are still looking there for tracks and ways of letting our raw materials pass through our neighbor's country to go to Europe, China, or America. Until we start talking about manufactured goods, we are blowing hot air. That's the problem. We are still talking. You know, I was very happy the other day on YouTube. There was one of these meetings where there was the president of Rwanda. And then yes, I think President Uhuru.
Former Uhuru is the outgoing president.
Yeah, you know, the new one.
William Ruto.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw them in a panel, and they were discussing trade. And I think they were saying something. I don't know whether the Ghanaian president was there or he was not there, but you know, my memory is very fake now. But the Rwandan president was challenging. He said, "Why can't we make that chocolate in Africa?"
Exactly. Over the years, he has been pushing forward for that.
Why can't we say put the machinery together and have countries like Rwanda participate in it financially and so on? So we create this giant industry in Ghana to make the chocolate, instead of you sending the chocolate, the coffee beans and the chocolate, the cocoa to Europe to be blessed. He called it blessing, and then sending it back to us.
And they're so expensive.
It does not make sense. What he was saying, c'est le nœud de guerre, as they said. That is the crux of the matter. If we cannot do that, all of that one that we are talking about, going up, down, forward, center, is noise.
So what all this brings or boils down to, it means like African leaders have to sit down. They actually assess their various countries, know what they're capable of doing, their strengths, their weaknesses, and so on. Then they'll be able to bring about possible and, of course, lucrative solutions that's going to help boost trade and possible development. Now,
but they have a problem, though. They have African heads of state have a problem. Should I say it?
Yes, sure.
It's not a taboo. Okay, this is the problem that African presidents have, and I learned it from Bishop Duncan Nicholas. Bishop Duncan Nicholas is from Ghana. I don't know if you know him.
Yes, I've heard about him.
The huge guy, you know, he with a very loud voice, and he usually wears white and white, you know, white top and white trousers.
Yes.
Okay, and he said something that was very important that caught my spirit, and what he said is true. African presidents, their minds are only set on elections and nothing else. So let's take the case of President Ruto now, who has just won elections and narrowly. If he's not very careful, he will not concentrating on solving the problem of Kenyans. He will be thinking and putting strategies, or though he has won.
Yes, he has started a lot of things he's going to put in place.
Yes. How do I win the next elections? That will what they will be doing. So, and how do I undo what Uhuru did? You know, so that my party can win next time. So we are in this eternal fight on of always trying to undo what our predecessors have done instead of building on the foundation, even if it was from a different party. You don't undo what the other person
What
tried
if
to
it
do.
was a weak foundation?
Yes. So no. Try to improve it.
Yes.
Build on it. Are you getting? Let us continue to build. But we are in the eternal process of
We should
scattering.
look forward to the future.
Yes,
rather than
we're always scattering
laying
and building, not even building a nation, but building from a greedy and selfish perspective. What do I do so that my party wins next time? Not doing something concretely for common good, but only trying to see how you can manipulate the system and stay in power, but without being concrete in your activities. So Bishop Duncan Nicholas said that what Africans need is not democracy. The democracy, people are just chasing elections round and round without the capacity to deliver or solve problems. What Africa needs is enlightened, benevolent despots who will work in the interest of their country, who will work in the interest of common good, who will try to actually address themselves to problems and not be concerned very much about elections and staying in power.
Very powerful one there. Of course, at the moment we are having a lot of meetings that are being held regarding the impact of climate change in Africa and at the global level. So now, what is the, given the impact of climate change, can we really say that climate change to some extent does affect cross-border trade and possible development in Africa?
Okay, before I answer your question, let us run through those things that affect trade in Africa, that affect our existence in Africa, those things that are our problems in Africa, the challenges of Africa. The challenges of Africa, number one. Okay, let's start with the
climate change?
let's start with economics.
Okay,
since the whole thing is about economics, right? And this trade. Our economic is primitive and our border trade is primitive. Okay? The next thing is we have security issues. The third thing is our education is very, very poor, so we don't know how to solve problems. All right? It's devoid of technology and skills. It's not there. All right? And we lack emotional intelligence. And while there's a lot of religion on the continent,
yes,
you have to make a distinction between being religion or religious and then the fear of God. Are you getting what I'm saying? When we are talking about religion, Christianity,
the fear of God,
Muslims, and what it is about the fear of God. It is not about the way your church worships, my church worships, Papa who. It's not about sowing seeds and all these things. So there is a difference between. I'm trying to paint a picture here. I don't know if I'm coming across properly. Just all this religion, there's so many churches and so on. It's not the thing. The fear of God is the thing. But people have left the fear of God and are running after prosperity and are running my church is and are trying to put this thing, my church is better than your church and so on. This is the way we do it and so on. That is now the politics of the church, the politics of religion or something. We are running after the wash you call it the wash water. You wash the baby and you are running after. You're more interested in the water, the wash water, than the baby. We have left the baby. The baby is the fear of God. We are not teaching the love and the fear of God. We are now running after other things, which is just politics and money. That is the problem. So all these things have come to confuse the whole setting. And like I said, there is no technology, there's no engineering and all of this. See, climate change is affecting us and is going to affect us. But climate change is not our biggest problem.
yes,
Our biggest problem is youth unemployment. Lack of capacity in youth. Are you getting what I'm saying?
yes,
If you are talking about climate change, fine, we should do something to. But if Africans are not eating, it's not because of climate change. Do you know Israel? Israel is a desert, but Israel exports food.
yeah,
And they started a long time ago. It's about technology. So we have the rainforest, we have everything, we have the land, we have the rain and so on. And the rain is still falling and we are crying about climate change. We are using it as an excuse to cover up for our laziness and stupidity. Have I answered your question?
yes, you have.
Okay.
You've cited a lot of challenges affecting cross-border trade in Africa, but
Yes.
away from the challenges,
Yes.
we cannot criticize or condemn without looking at the brighter side of it.
Yes.
What are the opportunities that it could present? Though we cited a few ahead some time ago, but what are actually those opportunities that Africans could gain from it?
There are so many opportunities, so many opportunities, but we are not thinking. Let's assume that our politics is good, our security systems are good and so on. Let's just look now, what should we be doing? Number one, like we said, just change our education. Okay, copy from successful countries so that we begin to produce children who are productive, not storytellers. We need children who have skills, who can solve problems, who can think out of the box, who are productive, but not storytellers. Let's produce the children who will not be running through the Mediterranean Sea trying to go to America or elsewhere. Children who would like to stay. Let's create an enabling environment for them to stay and give them the tools with which to work to be productive. We need to create that. All right. Once we do that, you and I, we already cited agriculture.
Yes.
That if we use agriculture to produce what we eat, to transform it, and also to sell to others, it will be a great opportunity. And then the third thing that we said was that, there is a lot of, the industrial growth is the thing. Manufacturing industry is the thing. And then ICT, all these things, they are great tools. You see, I saw a video of some guys in Togo, even if I'm not mistaken, that were making tractors. Tractors.
There are a lot of them across the African continent.
Yes,
with so
I'm not talking
potential.
about importing tractors and mounting them up. No, making.
We're talking of those that are using what they can get.
Yes.
To produce great things.
Yes.
There are a lot of them, but they're not exploiting those talents.
I saw it and I'm saying, oh, if I had the opportunity, that is what they are doing in Togo, one of those countries. Togo, Benin, I think it's Togo. Take that technology because it's already there. Somebody has proven that it works, and then give it a multiplier effect all over the nation.
Yeah, I watched a video even sometime where a young man he used these wastes, plastics, and he was able to produce 4.
Yes, do that. We have a lot of plastic
what is happening, but we are not bringing it out to limelight for it to benefit the continent, which is what we definitely need.
And there are small units that you can use to produce generate electricity in the homes. Not the big kind of electricity, but small things you can do to generate electricity in the homes, to light your house, light your farm barns, light your farmhouses, all the little things, little technologies. You can produce little hydro systems to light communities, but we are not using technology to our benefit at all. That is our greatest problem, the lack of use of technology. That until we solve that, we have lots of problems. We have lots of problems, and like we said before, if you go into our secondary schools and universities, 80% of our children are studying arts-related things. Marketing. You are studying marketing when you have nothing to market. You are studying banking when you don't know how to make money. Are you seeing the problem?
Yes.
And everybody is running away from engineering, from agriculture, from physics, from mathematics, and so on, because the way it was presented, it was not palatable. We need to change that and reverse it so that we start having 80% of our children more interested in the science and technology. Until we do that, if we don't do that, we will keep having but 80% of people doing the arts, and when they do arts, they go mostly into politics and they start telling lies and praising the president, which is not the right thing.
Yeah, definitely boils down to our educational systems, and it's not just about Africans boosting or encouraging children to like say the sciences or like technology, but of course building those that already have the skills, trying to make their talents being useful to the African continent.
It's very important.
Yeah, you earlier cited security when it comes to the challenges that when it comes to cross-border trade in Africa. Some of the challenges you spoke of, security. We have rising security on a daily basis.
Yes, and you know where that insecurity is coming from? It's coming from bad elections. All right.
Yes.
People, like I said, everybody wants to hang on to power, so people look for ways and means of hanging on that power, and it causes anger in communities and so on. So people begin to fight because a lot of people. The
quest for power is
yes. Another thing that you have to realize is that there are two groups of people in any nation. You have the civil service and the private sector. There's no third one. Either you are in the civil service or you are in the private sector. And the private sector in most African countries is not well developed. And people who are in the civil service, they behave as if they were little lords. And they steal from the state treasury. So everybody thinks that if you belong to the civil service, that's they have a soft life. If you are in the civil service and you can steal from the state treasury, that's okay. And then people in the private sector, they are the last of I don't know what. It doesn't matter how rich and you are in the private sector, they look down on you. We need to change that. When you go to countries that have succeeded like Germany, it is the private sector that drives the system. And the civil service is only there to regulate and control and help the nation to go forward. Am I making some sense here? It is the private sector that generates the wealth and generates the jobs and the opportunities. But here in third world countries, you see everybody. You see, like in Cameroon, everybody wants to write a concours and enter the public service. Everybody wants to be paid. Through the state treasury, but that is where the problem lies, and we need to correct that. When we begin to correct that and put money in the pockets of children, until you begin to build private wealth into the pockets of children and the citizens, the violence is going to continue. Identify
what they are good in.
Yes,
and
yes.
Invest in it.
Yes. The bottom line is put money, not physical money, but help them.
Even the knowledge.
Yes, help them get that capacity to create wealth for themselves and put it in their pockets. When they put enough money in their pocket, they will also put money in the state treasury. That is the secret. But if you create a system that takes even the little that they have to eat, there will be violence. So the violence that we are seeing is because of poor economics, poor entrepreneurship, poor skills development, poor education, and many things, and then bad politics. So we need to fight that violence, lack of emotional intelligence, lack of knowledge of the common good, and so on. So if we can correct that, a lot of things will be corrected.
Okay. How can we, as Africans, as the agile population, how can we take these challenges to our advantage as a continent?
The bottom line, number one, is first realize that we are 1.6 billion on this continent, and China has a population of 1.4.
Yes.
And India has a population of almost 1 billion as well.
But they took that and they are excelling today.
Yes, I was reading an article that someone Mbaku, as a journalist, he sent on WhatsApp this morning, and he was saying something that's very, very true. You see, during the period of colonization, let's take the British as an example. The British came to Africa and colonized all these territories, and then went to India to colonize India. And the British brought their culture, their religion, and their technology. All right, but look at what the Indians, they rejected the English culture, they rejected the English religion, but they took the technology. They took the technology. But Africa, what did Africa do? Africa took the religion, took the culture, and rejected the technology. You see where the difference is? So you see, India is growing because of that technology. But even when we took the religion, we didn't take the fear of God. We dumped the fear of God and then took the political part of religion.
Yes.
So we are in a total mess. We're in a total mess and we don't know ourselves. So we need to actually begin to work to correct this. To say, yes, when we are talking about religion, it should be about the fear of God.
There's this saying, the fear of God is the beginning of
wisdom. It's about the respect of God. It's not about all this fanfare around and so on. And get people to go deeper than this superficial thing of prosperity gospels and sowing seeds and so on. That is about the fear of God. And you cannot say that you fear God when you don't love your neighbor. So it's about the love of neighbor and self. That is the bottom line.
Ubuntu.
Yes, the Ubuntu. So when we have to get our population to come to that point, and all the governments to begin to work there, and we begin to see how we can make things happen for each other. That's the bottom line. Until we get to that point, we are time wasters.
Okay, given the progress that some African leaders like President Paul Kagame, Felicia Tshisekedi are doing when it comes to growing their various countries, you one time cited Botswana.
Yes.
Yeah, when it comes to growth in Africa.
Yes.
Now, given the progress that these other African countries are making, what lessons can the other African nations that are still, we cannot say behind, but what
they're
can
lagging.
they really, yes,
those are call it by their names. Call it by their names, who are lazy and don't know what to do.
What lessons can they learn from these leaders that are actually going forward?
This is the problem with Africa. The problem with Africa is not lack of examples. The problem of Africa is not lack of knowledge. It's just bad will. Are you getting what I'm saying? For instance, during the COVID, we were all washing our hands. You go to the toilet, you wash our hands.
Yes.
In primary school, you are said, when you use the toilet, wash your hands, and so on. But when you grow as adults, you don't want to wash your hands. You eat banana peelings, you throw them on the road, you pee on the streets, and so on. Is it because you lack knowledge? No. So we just fail to do what is right. It's about discipline. It's not lack of knowledge. It's about discipline. Like I told you before, all the African countries, they are seeing what is right to do, but they care very little about common good. They care more about how do I stay in power. That's the problem.
Exactly. How do you stay in power? The
And
position
then
of power again.
yeah, how do I grab things for my own, for my family and people of my party? People don't think globally in the interest of everybody and for common good and long term for generations to come. They think only of self. Is that selfishness that is killing us?
Given that there are a lot of agreements, trade agreements, so to say, that have been signed in Africa, which up to now we are yet to see some of the results of this or the impact that they have had on the various African countries that were stated during those agreements. How can African leaders sit together, bring about prosperous or fundamental agreements that are going to not just be on a piece of paper, but are actually going to reflect in, say, some years to come, reflect on the country. Now, where you sit back, say, some 10 years to come, you look at the country, you're like, no, those decisions we made were the right ones.
Yes.
How can they do that?
See, like I told at the beginning of the program, we said that sometimes it sounds like rocket science, and you will see all these African presidents, they will go and sit in Ethiopia for a week trying to answer this question, but they don't need to move. And you get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Honestly, they just spend time go around doing nothing. Let me put it very clearly to you. Sign any contracts that you want or agreements. It amounts to nothing until you have something to sell. Until you have something, a product to sell. And don't go and sign contracts. Okay, if I'm signing a contract with you, then it should be that I have this product to sell. Please, let's go into I will sell you this product, and then I buy this other product from you. As long as we are not talking about product and which everybody can see, feel, and so on.
There was a trade by barter.
Yes.
Where someone will give you oil.
Yes.
Salt.
That's what was
that
trade by barter is
flourishing.
great. It's great, and that's what we need in Africa. Why so? Okay, see. We have an issue of currency in Africa also, especially the French-speaking countries.
Yes.
All right, you mentioned something great there. All right, because the way they brought their CFA, it means that if, let's say, we produce wheat in Cameroon, and then the people of Chad, they are producing, let's just say they're producing perfumes or something in Chad. We need their perfumes or their cattle, and they need our wheat. Okay. What will happen is that we will sell in dollars or CFA, and that conversion and all and not, takes a good chunk of what we are doing.
Yes.
But we should just give the value of the wheat here, and they give the value of the perfumes. We say, take so much wheat and give us so much perfume. Period. Are you getting what? There was no money exchange, but we got what we wanted. But you use the money value, be it the dollar or the CFA, just as a measure. To say, this your basket of this thing is worth this. This my bags of wheat is worth this. Are you getting me? You give this one. We exchange. Okay, Chad doesn't have wood. We are giving them wood so that they can make benches for students. So we give them the wood, and they give us something in return. Period. All right. And if there's some little balances, then we can balance that up with dollars. But let us, as if we become productive, producing what we eat and need, then we'll be able to sell to our neighbors using the trade and barter.
Takes us back to the old days.
The old days.
They say what used to happen in those days definitely comes back. Technology
It comes back. Okay. Money was just there to facilitate this. But these days, that money is paper. You just use it as a measure. Whatever I have is so many dollars. Whatever you have, then we go into our accounts and feed that. Okay, whatever I gave to you is worth so many dollars. Whatever you give to me is so many dollars, and we add and subtract there, and we exchange the goods and the speech.
So, if you had to give a word of advice to the young generation, so that they can not just be ones that will just sit and look at the leaders, or expect the leaders to actually bring about the change that we need, what is that going to be?
The thing is, we've said it before, is this great principle of DIY. Do it yourself. And then YouTube is there to teach you a lot of skills and many things. And so, and there are programs like this. They will go on YouTube, they'll go on Facebook and so on. Listen to good stuff. Find out, how did the Chinese do it? How did the Indians do it? How do the Japanese and the Israelites do it? How do the Finnish people do it? You know, read books, go into this, and don't depend on what you were taught in the classroom and your certificate. No, go out of your cocoon, go out of your comfort zone and study these things and get a trade. You know, get some skills and begin to do something. And agriculture is a great place to start.
Agriculture indeed is a great place to start. So what is going to be your take-home message?
The take-home message is, first, bottom line is, we are in a mess in Africa. Our economy is in a mess. Our education is in a mess. Our youths are in a mess, and we have the capacity to change it. Don't depend on the international community. Don't depend on white men. Don't depend on green men. Don't depend on yellow men. Depend on yourself. Steal what you can steal from them in the name of technology or whatever, and use it to your advantage and solve your own problems. Thanks.
I was about to close, but you cited something that was very, very pertinent.
Oh, what's that?
The education aspect of it. Now, you mentioned education systems again.
Yes.
We have spoken on this platform, but then I would like to reiterate. How do we change? We are talking of boosting the Africa we need.
Yes.
How do we change the narrative right from the roots?
You change the narrative,
especially when it comes to economics.
Yes, you change the narrative right from the root by doing what is right, just, and good. And you have to start it from nursery school, primary school, secondary school, and then adult education. If you don't, because you cannot give what you don't have. If your mind is clogged, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you will not be working smart. It's about working smart. You see, the books, or when you read the books or listen to people say, work hard. No, work hard is the wrong thing. Work smart. I don't know whether you're getting it.
Yes.
Working hard, you can work hard at digging a trench, you are going nowhere. Working smart to dig a trench, you use a machine to dig the trench. So it's about thinking smart and working smart. We have to train our people to think smart and work smart, not working hard. Thanks.
Think smart, work
smart. Yes.
That should be the take-home message for today. Thank you immensely, Dr. Nick, for joining me on today's
My pleasure.
program.
It's always good to be with you. Thanks.
Of course, if you did not know, of course, he's an entrepreneur as well as a political analyst here in Cameroon. Ladies and gentlemen, gradually but surely we have come to the end of today's edition of Voice Sit over your Pan-African channel, 4U Media. If you're watching us on 4U Television or listening to us over 4U Radio, today we were discussing cross-border trade on the African continent, looking at the opportunities as well as the challenges that face cross-border trade when it comes to partnering with different African nations. And of course, Dr. Nick gave in his input, very powerful input, which will help all African nations, all African leaders, of course, look at a path that is going to definitely lead to economic growth and economic development. I have NJIX NABESEH for presentation. I want to thank the technical team for making sure that the program ran smoothly. Ladies and gentlemen, do have a great day in company of our programs.